Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Wheel and Anchor pre-trip webinar for your upcoming trip to Central Asia. Very excited to be joined with Amber today to show you this amazing trip that we have in store for you. Excuse me for being on the wrong page to start, but we're ready to go now. It's 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I think we've got a good chunk of members here. Yeah, we sure do. We will, of course, be recording this webinar as we always do. So if anybody is not able to attend, or if there's anything you want to refresh up on, then we will be sending that out about a day after this gets going. So on our webinar today, we are going to be covering, first of all, I'm going to introduce your wonderful host, Amber. Many of you know her from previous trips. Then we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to know to travel to Central Asia, your arrival into Almaty, into Kazakhstan. And then we're not going to go through the itinerary in great detail. We're not going to go through the day by day, but we are going to give you a heads up on a few of the things to be aware of in terms of how this trip is going to unfold, so that when getting ready to go, you can have that in mind and know what is going to happen. And at the end, of course, we're going to cover questions and answers. You are welcome to ask questions at any point during the webinar. And if you haven't already found it on your screen, you should see a menu bar where you'll find chat or Q&A. Doesn't matter to us. You can click on one of those, put your question in, and then we will answer it at the very latest at the end of the webinar in the Q&A section. So first of all, without further ado, your host, Amber Riddell. I'm not going to say any more. I'll leave it to Amber to tell her a little bit about herself and whatever else you want to say, Amber.
Thanks, Gordon. Hi, everybody. I have the privilege of being your host for this Wheel and Anchor trip. Um, I have hosted a number of trips, probably more trips than anybody else, including Gordon, possibly in the company has.
Maybe even
Um,
me.
I think maybe. So hosting is like very core and is like really, really part of who I am. I love being of service on the trip. My job is to cross T's and dot I's. I make sure everyone that we have hired is up to the task, is doing what's expected. I'm making sure that things come off with as little of a hitch as possible. And when there is a hitch, I'm there to assist and pivot and make sure that you have everything that you need. I am not a expert in the countries we are going to. We hire local guides for that because we want to hear from them about the country. I'm there to make sure that, generally your time is enjoyed and anything sort of in between of, country specific things are taken care of on your behalf.
Yeah, exactly. And Amber does that in spades, to say the least. And so she's going to make sure that everything goes smoothly in this very interesting part of the world. I'm so excited for you all to be going here. As you know, I went there. As you may know, or I went there about a year and a half ago, spring of last year, and was really taken by some of the sights and experiences that we've put together in this trip. So anyway, without further ado, let's get right into it. And I'll start off just talking about, of course, the most important thing is making sure you have the appropriate documentation, which in this case is pretty easy because all you actually need is your passport. There are no visas required for certainly the duration of this trip for visitors from Canada. If for some reason you have a different passport, I don't think we have anybody with different passports on this trip, but please let us know. Please check, but I think everybody's got a Canadian passport. So you're good to go. It is important to note, though, that the passport does need to be valid for 6 months after entry. So, in other words, your entry date is going to be October the 14th. So, in other words, count 6 months from that. And that's when your passport needs to be valid from. Probably you will have done that already, but if you haven't, now's a good time in case there's any last minute changes that need to be made. And it should have at least two blank pages. That's kind of the general rule for a lot of countries in the world. That's what their requirement is. So if you haven't had a look at your passport recently and double checked it, now would be the right time to do that. I always strongly recommend to make a photocopy, or at the very least, I take a photo of it with my phone so that I've got the critical data from that information page in a separate location. In the extremely unlikely event that something should happen to your passport, or that you should need that information along the way, because sometimes if you're exchanging money, or if you're buying a SIM card, uh, there are places that will ask for your passport information. If you have it on your phone, that generally suffices. That means you can leave it safely in the safety deposit box inside your room. Um, but other than that, there's not really any other documents required. I always suggest, nice to have a printed copy of any other critical things like your e-ticket. I mean, I don't print mine, but at the same time, it gives a bit of comfort to have that in a separate place if, in case there's some issue that might crop up. And uh, what was I going to say, prescription medication, if you have that stuff in your carry-on close at hand, anything critical. But apart from that, the old saying goes, money, tickets, passport. But money is pretty much all digital these days, and we'll talk about that in a second. Tickets as well, but the passport is the one thing that is irreplaceable. And of course, your phone. That is, don't forget your phone. Um, that's important. But anyway, let's move on from there and talk a little bit about packing, because we're going to go through some different weather and climate. So, Amber, I'm going to defer to you because you're the packing expert and you can tell us a little bit about what should be
Yeah, so I
required.
am the carry-on queen. I do not check luggage, and this one has had me thinking about what I'm packing already for weeks, if not months. Um, because we really do need to pack smart in this trip. We've got a lot of different weathers happening. So we have Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, and we're looking at like 10 degrees to 18 degrees. There are some nights that there are reported lower, like even like single digits in these areas. So it's cool evenings. We've even got a little bit of a chance of rain. Then we have Uzbekistan, which is a little bit warmer, 15, could be 24 degrees, milder, but still occasional rain. So it really means that we have to think about layers and think about what we're packing because we are moving a lot in this trip. So
Mm,
we are on the go, and porterage is not a thing in these neck
not
of the
really.
woods. So you are going to be your own porter, which means you are going to be carrying whatever you pack. There's also a point where we have to transfer our own luggage across a land border. And again, it's you dragging your luggage across that border. So you really want to think about and double think, do I really need this extra whatever you're putting into your bag? That said, layers is the name of the game. So you're going to want to be able to layer up and layer down light jackets, a fleece for the cooler nights, anything breathable during the day. Definitely longer pants, shoulders covered because we are in some areas that require some modesty for entering mosques. And so you really want to think about not having thin straps, but a little bit more of a covered shoulder. For shoes, even though I only do carry on, really adhere to the two pairs of shoes, just so that you always have a pair to change into in case one gets wet. Or if you start to get blisters, simply changing your shoes can kind of take away that hot spot and help you get over uh, sort of all of that.
Mhm.
But otherwise, it's just like, you know, all of Wheel and Anchor trips are a casual nature to them.
Yeah.
And so you do not need to be special outfit for dressing up for evenings. There's really none of that. And I, for one, you will be seeing me in some repeat outfits. And I encourage all of you to also be doing the same thing. Um,
Yeah.
one of the questions that I've already gotten on Telegram is about whether or not our hotels will have laundry service. So some of the hotels will have laundry service, some of the smaller guest houses, not so much laundry service. So I do recommend, I took a sort of a look at where we're staying, and I recommend you be able to go at least 8 days without having to do laundry. So that's going to be my go-to as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's about right from my own experience as well. It's like I wouldn't count on laundry, and then, quite honestly, between Almaty and Tashkent, there's not going to be any opportunity. There's not enough time, and there's not, yeah.
Eight
So,
days.
yeah, and again, to emphasize Amber's point, we're staying at some guest houses along the way, particularly in Kyrgyzstan. They're lovely, they're simple, they're basic, but they have a few steps. There's no elevators in these places, and so they have some people around to give a hand, but I would not count on that. You have to be able to carry your own suitcase up. And again, we're not talking about flights and flights of stairs. Nothing is more than the second floor. But yeah, so travel as light as you can. Um, just the only other thing is just keep a mind about electric adapters. They use basically the same voltage and plugs as they do in Europe. It's detailed in the trip specific reference guide that we sent along to you. So those European adapters with the two prongs are necessary. And if you happen to have any devices that are unusual, when I say unusual, meaning not electronic charging devices, which all pretty much work on dual voltage, but if you have a hair dryer, anything with a heating element, or if you have a hearing aid with a special charger, if you're not sure, please double check those appliances to make sure that they will work on dual voltage. So it'll say in the back 110 to 230, and then you're good to go. And if you're not sure, double check with somebody, because you don't want to just plug stuff in if you're not sure that it'll work on both voltages. And I think that's it. There is one other note in here, which isn't really relating to packing per se. This is sort of a general note, and we'll have other ones that will just about public washrooms along the way. So squat toilets in Central Asia are still the norm in a lot of places. We are aware of this, and we do whatever we can to avoid going to such places. But there are going to be circumstances where you're in a place that there is nothing else available other than a squat toilet. And so, hand sanitizer, having some tissues. I mean, I think women are generally more accustomed to that, but it's just a reminder, so you're again not caught off guard, that it's like, what would I need if I wanted to enjoy the experience of a squat toilet. And in his experience, you have to treat it as such, right? It's
That's right.
uh
Everyone start doing their own squats now to get ready.
start doing the
Some
squats, exactly.
lunges, getting those like
Yeah.
thighs built up. That's it.
Precisely. Good. All right, let's move on. Money. Um, I'll start off, Amber. You can sort of fill in the blanks on this.
Mhm.
Obviously, this is a critical question. I had a member email me over the weekend who asked about bringing euros to then exchange into local currency. I wouldn't do any of that. Honestly, if you really want to bring some cash, just because the comfort of having some cash, if you have some US dollars lying around, but I wouldn't go out of your way to then go and buy a different currency to then switch it into another currency. All you're doing is paying the banks and exchange companies a lot of money. Their system over there is that you can use ATMs just as you would at home. I didn't bring a nickel with me of local currency when I showed up there, and I just went to the first ATM and grabbed a bunch of currency out. And they use interesting currencies over there. They're all different. In Kazakhstan, it's the tenge. In Kyrgyzstan, it's the som. In Uzbekistan, it's also a som, but a different som. So yeah, this is a whole world of different currencies. You are going to be able to use your credit cards in the big cities, particularly Almaty, Tashkent, Bishkek, Samarkand, at a lot of places. But there's markets. You can imagine these Silk Road sort of markets where it will definitely be easy to have some cash. So how much cash? Well, that's up to you. I wouldn't, it's hard for me to judge what you would need, but if you had $100 to start in any given place, if you do find a trinket, something that is worth taking home, and there's I mean, even I bought stuff when I was over there. There's some very beautiful and interesting things to buy. But there's never an ATM that's that far away in terms of getting cash. And so you can use your credit card, debit card for the most part at home. But Amber, why don't you mention about Wise? Because that's kind of where we
Well,
go. That's what I use. That's the only
yeah.
thing I use overseas.
Well, it's the only thing I use now as well because it's basically like a debit and a credit card that you can load up with currency in a few different ways. And I like the security of it, that I'm not using something that's my regular bank account. It has a super easy interface on your mobile phone. You can exchange currency in there and then be tracking in real time what you're spending and what you're using specifically on the trip. There are no fees to withdraw up to, I believe it's $300. There's no banking fees. Once you're over the $300 taking that out, then there are some fees. However,
But it's still cheaper than
it's
banks, I
so
think.
much
Yeah.
cheaper than banks.
Yeah.
And it's like in one of the countries, because there is a limit on the amount that you can take out of an ATM. And I reached the limit because I was doing two trips. And so I had to use my regular card for exactly the same amount to reach that limit again. So I was comparing apples and apples, and it was three times the charges from my bank than it was to withdraw the same amount of money on
Yeah.
Wise. And so at that point, I'm only using Wise for that reason.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, but
And
yeah.
what's great is you can tap it just like it's a credit card when credit cards are taken. And so I find that it dramatically decreases the amount of cash I feel like I have on hand. And so this way I'm not constantly having to deal with exchanging money from one to another because I'm just leaving it on the Wise card instead and taking it out as needed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and if you talk to any other members that have traveled with us, people that have adopted it generally fall in love with it. It's just very, very handy tool.
Yeah.
All the other details again in the trip specific guide on how to get it, how to download it. You can get a digital card. That's what I use most of the time, right on your phone. So you don't even need the physical card. But if you want it and you want that and you don't already have it, then today would be the day to take action because it does take a few weeks to get to your mailbox.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that's about all we need to say about that.
Right.
We'll talk about gratuities for a second. And gratuities are included for pretty much all of the, well, not pretty much, for all of the included elements of your trip. So we've taken care of, well, you've prepaid in a sense for the drivers and the guides and the restaurants that we eat in. All of that is looked after. It's you've already prepaid it. Amber takes care of it on site, so we make sure that all of the wonderful people that are delivering the services along the way are looked after. So the only things that you need to worry about is when you arrive, your transfer driver from the airport, because we're obviously not there to take care of them. If you want to give them a couple of bucks, or for any meals at that are not included when you're out on your own, and the general um, approach to tipping in Asia is that in Central Asia it's not like at home. It's more like Europe in the sense that it's not a expectation, particularly in more casual restaurants, more local sort of restaurants. But in larger restaurants, places that are a little fancier and so on, it is, let's say, more appropriate to leave a tip 5 to 10%. Check if there's a service charge on your bill. A lot more and more hotels and bigger restaurants are just adding a service charge right in. So if that's already there, you don't need to add a tip. And as with most places outside of North America, if you are leaving a tip, it's better to do so in cash, in local currency or in US dollars, because adding it to the bill is doesn't often end up in the hands of the person who it's
Yeah.
intended for. So that's a good practice. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, I think that's all there is to say about that, Amber.
No, I think that's it.
That's it. All right. Mobile communications. Do you want to start off on this, Amber, and I'll fill in the blanks?
Sure. So, a SIM card's not included for this trip. Some of our trips, SIM cards are included. This is not one.
Mhm.
However, we highly recommend you consider it. Because one of the options, if you plan to use your phone, is to just roam like home. check with your Canadian provider, but generally that's going to run you 15 to $20 a day. What we would suggest is get a local SIM or an eSIM. It's quite easy, is my understanding. When you arrive into the airport, you're able to pick up a SIM at the airport. They'll help you swap everything out, and or you can install an eSIM. Um, Gordon, did you use an eSIM when you
I
were
used an
there?
eSIM with no problem at all.
Okay.
So and with eSIMs, there's a million providers out there.
Yeah.
I think Amber, you generally go to Airolo, AIROLO. That's your kind of go-to.
Yes.
I've used Saily, SAILY. Um, we don't endorse any particular one only because we haven't really thoroughly tested enough, and it's a little bit all over the map.
It's kind of
But if you
hit and
go
miss according to
it's
countries.
it's hit and miss.
Yeah.
But I did have an eSIM and it did work just fine
Right.
in the bigger cities.
Hmm.
And as I recall going across Kyrgyzstan, I don't recall too many. There was a few holes in the service because you'll see when you're in Kazakhstan in what looks like the middle of nowhere. It kind of is the middle of nowhere. The service, there'll be no service, so you're not, regardless, you're not going to be able to have 24/7 access to the internet. But when you need it and when you're closer to settlements and larger towns and villages and cities and so on, it won't be a problem. And eSIM is definitely a possibility because again, it's three countries, so you can get an eSIM that will cover all three, and then you don't have to worry about if you get a local SIM, it will only be good for one country.
Yeah.
So this is where the eSIM is the best way to go. Because yeah, if you buy a physical SIM for Kazakhstan, you're only there for the first 5 days, and then it's no good when you get to Kyrgyzstan, and then it's no, and then yeah. So eSIM is the way to go.
Yeah. The other thing to consider is Wi-Fi is available in all of the hotels. The Wi-Fi is not necessarily going to also be up to our standards. So the
Yeah.
truth is, probably a cell signal may be faster than some of the Wi-Fi that we're experiencing it. So it's one of the reasons we're considering suggesting
Yeah.
that you think about this as an option. Telegram is our main communication tool that we use in the trip. Telegram does work on Wi-Fi. So you're able to get all of the messages. If you have a cell signal or you change out or you get an eSIM, Telegram doesn't change. So it's like WhatsApp. So it's not attached to your phone number. It's not like text messaging that goes away. Telegram still will work. If you don't get a cell, an eSIM or a SIM card, you can still use Telegram on Wi-Fi. You just can't communicate when you're off Wi-Fi. So, for example, if you were out and about and you got lost, you would need to find Wi-Fi to be able to call us and use Telegram as a phone or get in touch with the group for us to figure out where you are. So, the only thing that we ask is that you make sure you check in on Telegram at least once a day, because that's where all of the updates and all of the communications will be coming from me. So you'll have to make sure that you find yourself some good, decent Wi-Fi at least once a day to make sure you're all up to date.
Exactly. And there is, as Amber said, Wi-Fi in all of the accommodations that you're at. Even the guest houses have it, and restaurants. So it's pretty ubiquitous. Yeah, so shouldn't be too much of a problem. I'll just touch on the health protocols real quick, and there's really only a couple things to mention here. First of all, if you feel unwell, if you have develop a sneeze or a cough, let Amber know. Please wear a mask. It's just respect for other members, and I won't say any more about that because we talk about this every time, and it's becoming more habitual for folks when they're not feeling well because you are going to be traveling obviously together in mini buses and so on for long periods of time. So we obviously want to avoid sharing anything that we might pick up along the way. If you should injure yourself at any time, even something minor, a scrape, a twist of a this or that, it can happen. Please let Amber know. We will err on the side of advising that you visit a clinic or a physician along the way because we just want to make sure that you return home in the same condition or better. And finally, obviously, no smoking permitted during while we're together with the group. that kind of goes without saying. I will say that smoking is definitely still a thing in much of Central Asia. So you'll find people smoking sometimes, rather raunchy smelling cigarettes. So we just have to leave a little room for that. That's still part of their culture. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Um, yeah, let's talk about the arrival in the preparation before, leading up to the trip. So in the 24 hours beforehand, always a good idea to keep an eye on your emails and your phone in case your airline should advise you in advance of any delays, which they do tend to do. The most important thing there is if you are going to be, because obviously everybody's connecting via somewhere, via Istanbul, via Dubai, wherever you are traveling to get to Almaty, and if you miss your connecting flight, if you're not arriving on the flight that you are meant to be arriving on, you need to please reach out to Amber via Telegram as soon as possible so that she can ensure that your transfer is reorganized and that we aren't searching for you when you're not there. That's probably the most important thing in terms of pre-arrival. It is a bit of a long trip because obviously you're flying to Europe or you're flying to perhaps Istanbul and then connecting up. So yeah, be prepared and you'll be sometimes arriving at odd times in the middle of the night. That is one of the challenges of going to an off the beaten track part of the world is that they don't have flight connections arriving at convenient times. They arrive when they arrive. Um, and I think if you're somebody that has is arriving in the middle of the night, you haven't already booked that pre-night. Amber, can they still? I think they can still touch base with our office or make arrangements with our team. Where do we stand on that?
Yeah, we can definitely try. I think it looks
Yeah.
like all of the rooms have been released, but if you
Hmm.
didn't book a pre-night, you can reach out and we can see what if we can secure a room. Most people are coming in. I'm just looking at the arrival times. We have a group coming in at 1:15 a.m., another group at 2 a.m., another group at 3:35 a.m., 4:05 a.m., and then 8:10 a.m., and then our last group at 7:10 p.m. So most people are coming in quite in the middle of the night.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. If you rely on the hotel might maybe having a room for you available early in the morning, you might just, it's one of those things because it's a long journey and one tends to think about, oh, I'll worry about it when I get there. But when you're tired and exhausted, and if you don't have anything arranged, you will be the hotel will be not necessarily offering rooms until check-in time, which is like 4 p.m. So just have a double check, keep that in mind. Because we don't want you to be uncomfortable having to sit in the lobby or say
Yeah.
going wandering around Tashkent, which is a perfect, or sorry, around Almaty, which is a perfectly safe and suitable and thing to do. But after traveling for all those hours, probably more inclined to want to take a rest and a shower and so on and so forth. So do
Yeah.
keep that in mind. For the arrival, you're going to arrive into Almaty International Airport. A driver will be there. It's a fairly big, fairly modern airport. It's a fairly quick trip downtown, roughly half an hour, obviously, depending on traffic. They do have traffic like they do in the rest of the world. It's a big city, but I found it a very friendly city. It's a very green city, and you'll see that all throughout the trip. Um, and then Amber will be there in the morning because Amber, you're flying in a day before or even more, a day
I am
before.
a day before everybody.
Yeah,
I will be there. So I'll be on the ground coordinating with your drivers and making sure that if your flight has been delayed, we monitor the flights. You don't need to let me know if you're
right.
on the same flight. You don't need to let me know. We will know about that. The only time you need to get in touch with me is if you've missed a flight in transit and you're not going to be on the anticipated flight. That's when you'll want to reach out to me and let me know what the new times and flight numbers are for that. And that's why all of you want to reach out on Telegram starting now and reach out and make sure that you're connected with me because I'm the one that you'll need to be in touch with en route if anything happens to ensure that you have the driver there waiting for you.
Exactly.
The one thing to note with the drivers may or may not speak English. The likelihood
Yeah.
is they probably will not speak English. So my request is that you be you be gentle and understanding and have your game of charades ready to go. Your driver will have either a wheel and anchor sign or your names on there.
Yes.
And I'll also post in the daily for anybody that's sharing transfers. If there's a few of you coming in on the same trip, on the same flight or a flight that's very close to each other, I will put it into the daily so that you have the schedules and you guys know who you are. On Telegram, you can also communicate with each other so that you can see what each other looks like. You can make plans to meet each other in the airport. And so there's just some added, security and feeling like there's other people joining you in those transfers as well.
Exactly. Exactly. Perfect. Just a quick overview, and then I'm going to touch on a few points of the itinerary, and I will come back to questions that have come in. So just bear with me as we get to the Q&A section. Obviously, the area that we're talking about is Central Asia in here, beginning in Almaty, which of course is in the southeastern corner of Kazakhstan, a huge country. You're there for the first couple of nights. We then go overland. And the most important thing to remember is there are some long drives in this itinerary because there's no other way to get to these places. So, um, so keeping that in mind in terms of a preparation, something to pack, we don't have too many occasions of a lot of like windy, up and down kind of roads. But if you're somebody that suffers from motion sickness, I would still have whatever it is that you would normally take in those circumstances with you. Mostly the roads are paved and flat and fairly straight, but there are, and you'll see that as you go through, particularly Kyrgyzstan, they are rebuilding or building a lot of brand new roads and highways. So there are some bits that are quite bumpy and dusty, and sometimes it goes on for an hour or more. And so just keep that in mind in some long journeys. So you're going to travel from Almaty into the Kolsai Lakes area. So you got a 3-hour drive to Churin Canyon, and then another roughly 2 hours drive from there. It's broken up by visiting this incredible gorge, by stopping at the Kolsai Lakes before getting to the hotel. It's again a couple hours drive down. We're going to cross, as Amber said, into over the border between Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan. It's quite an amazing place because it's like a border outpost, like you were in the middle of the prairie provinces. It's all flat and with mountains in the far distance, and you're just there. And it's, you get off the bus and you go through the one immigration and you drag your suitcase over to the next one, and then you get back on the next bus. It's all pretty straightforward. It's all pretty easy. It's all pretty flat. It's an experience in and of itself crossing these frontiers. That's the only frontier that we'll cross overland because, of course, we're flying from Kyrgyzstan into Uzbekistan. So I'll talk about that. So then we're going to go through on the south side of Isyk, which is one of the largest high altitude lakes in the world, with this beautiful background of the mountains to the north, and then up into Bishkek. So quite a bit of driving on the Kyrgyzstan side because, again, we're visiting these lovely places that there's just no other way to get there. Then we'll end our Kyrgyzstan part of the trip in Bishkek, the capital, and where we'll spend a night at a beautiful hotel, the nicest in town. So that'll be nice after a couple of days of guest houses. And I'll talk about that in a second. And then we fly from there over to Tashkent, which is, of course, the capital of Uzbekistan, very modern city. So we'll be there for a couple of nights. We're then traveling by train, as we mentioned, from Tashkent to Samarkand, Samarkand to Bukhara, and Bukhara up to Khiva. The trains between Tashkent and Bukhara are quite modern. They look, when I traveled by them, like trains in Europe. They're, yeah, very comfy, but you have to bring your own luggage on board the train, and you got to put it in the luggage racks at the beginning and the end of the carriage. So there's all that to be considered. And so we're prepared for that, but you have to be prepared for that because then ultimately you're the one that has to manage that. We have all reserved seating and all the rest of it. And then you've got at the very end a fairly long, it's a very fast express train from Tashkent to Samarkand, Samarkand to Bukhara, and from Bukhara up to Khiva. This is still more of a slower regional train. They haven't finished their high speed route up there just yet. So you're going to go through some incredible scenery. You're going to be on the train for quite a while. I think it's about a 7 hour journey, but it'll be relaxing. We'll leave in the morning and we'll be in by midday, and then that'll be that. So just to want to make a few highlights in the itinerary. Amber, please do jump in. Amber and I just reviewed this the other day in quite a bit of detail. So if there's something that I forgot about, Almaty again is not the capital, of course, of Kazakhstan, but it's the main commercial center. And it's a very green city. And I won't go into all how that transpired. You'll find out all about that while you're there. Kazakhstan in October is typically cool, and we are going to make a day trip, weather permitting, up to one of the mountains nearby, which is actually a ski resort. They had a ski resort literally on the outskirts of Almaty. We're going to go part way up. We're not going to go all the way to the top of the mountain because the cable car doesn't go up at that time of the year. And again, weather permitting, but we're going to still travel up to over 2,500 meters of altitude on top of being, so it'll be chilly up there. But it'll be a beautiful day. Assuming again, it's not a beautiful day, in which case there may be an alternate program because we're not going to take you up a cable car if it's completely socked in and can't see anything. But you'll be in good hands for all of that. In Almaty, again, a safe city. You're right in the center. And it's great, and there'll be some time in there. As Amber said, it's a fairly busy program, but at the same time, you'll have some time for wandering around and exploring. And there's great restaurants in Almaty. You're then going to travel overland, and the scenery here on the way from Almaty up to the Kolsai Lakes is quite dramatic. I can honestly say I've not seen anything quite like it. Very vast landscapes, wild horses you'll likely see along the way at some point. Quite amazing. You'll getting up to the Kolsai Lakes. You're going to visit the Turin Canyon. This is like a little bit like a Lake Louise kind of a vibe. This beautiful lake surrounded by snow-capped mountains. Quite a beautiful spot. You're there for a night. You'll then head over into Kyrgyzstan, as I mentioned, crossing the border on foot, visiting this very cool town called Karakol, with its Orthodox churches. It's kind of like Soviet outpost, but more and more has this feeling of Kyrgyz local culture that they're bringing back after having been suppressed by the Soviets for all those years. You're staying in guest houses in here in Karakol as well as in Chonkamin. So, I mean, how do I describe them? They're basic in the sense that they are, they have beds, they have a bathroom with a shower, but they're not. There's nothing fancy about them. There's no interior design. They're comfortable, they're clean, they're very friendly places, but they're not fancy. But they have the basics that you need: hot and cold running water, private washroom facilities, little dining area, tasty breakfast. But yeah, that's part of the adventure, because that's why we come to these places, because there aren't any fancy hotels. This is what we have, and it's a great experience. So we got some lovely things along the way, and we got some hands-on activities that you're going to get to participate in. And once again, as I say, it's some long drives, but we'll be stopping along the way, avoiding places with squat toilets as much as possible. But yeah, you never know what we're going to get. We're going to come into Bishkek, the capital. We're only here for a night, sort of a day and a night and another day before we catch our flight out. And it's we're staying in a lovely hotel here, so it would be a nice respite after a couple of nights in guest houses, which again are lovely, but this will be the chance to like have a real hot shower in a quote unquote fancy hotel. And we'll have some time to explore this city as well, and then it'll be off to Tashkent, which has very old and decrepit parts, but also it has a new downtown center that is more vibrant than anything in Canada that I'm aware of. It's quite amazing the juxtapositions that you'll find in Uzbekistan. And these cities are all, again, super safe. People are generally friendly, even if people don't speak English. So obviously hospitality people, everything that we'll confront on in the course of our trips will speak some English. But if you're out and about, another good reason to have mobile data on your phone so you can become adept at Google Translate, to the extent that's necessary to, help translate and any information into the local language. We're staying at a lovely hotel in Tashkent as well. But as I said, train to Samarkand. This is really the highlight of the Silk Road sort of cities, Samarkand, Bukharan, Khiva, with their incredible madrasas like you find here at Registan Square. And what you'll find in Samarkand, the hotel that we've selected, and I remember having visited many, many, many places because I was looking for the right wheel and anchor experience, is in sort of a dusty neighborhood, very close, a 10-minute walk to the main site of Samarkand. But when you first arrive, you're like, where the heck are we? But then when you go inside, you'll be pleasantly surprised with the environment, and it's a very inviting place. And again, in a great location, even if it doesn't look like what a great location would look like if you were traveling in
Right.
Europe or in Asia somewhere, right? And the same applies in Bukhara as well. These cities are, for the most part, everything that you want to see is reachable on foot. Particularly Bukhara is very compact, and we do have ample time to just wander and visit the markets. And anyway, I can't say enough that they're truly, truly magical. As I mentioned before, Samarkand, Bukhara by train, Tashkent, Samarkand, and Samarkand, Bukhara by train, and then the final leg up to Khiva, which is the only city in this itinerary that I have not visited personally. I just didn't have enough time on my last visit. Some say it's the highlight; it's a desert oasis. I'm excited for you to hear about how you're going to enjoy Khiva, and what that's all about, and then from there, I think pretty much almost everybody has that extra night because of the whole flight schedule thing. So you'll have lots of extra time to enjoy it. And then you'll, of course, be transferred down to Urgench for your flight back home or wherever it is that you may be going. So, uh, did I miss anything, Amber, in terms of
I don't think
the?
so.
I think I covered the most important things I wanted to highlight. It's time for any questions, and I see a couple came in here. So let me just put my glasses back on. Danielle asked if the Telegram group has been set up yet. I think it has.
It
Um,
has, absolutely. If you reach
yeah,
out to me on Telegram, I can add you, or in the information that Aura just sent that had the information for this webinar, the information for the Telegram channel and group is in there as well.
yeah,
But if you
exactly.
reach out to me, make sure just reach out to me and tell me that you're on the Central Asia trip, and I can get you added in that way.
Perfect. Perfect. Um, and another question here, about drinking water, whether you should avoid drinking from the tap. You actually can, technically, the water is potable in most of the places we're going. As a rule, we generally avoid drinking tap water, not because there's anything wrong with it necessarily, but every tap water in the world has different things in it that your body just may not be accustomed to. So, particularly if you're somebody with a sensitive stomach or sensitive digestive system, I definitely wouldn't do it. Follow the guidance. The bigger hotels, you could, as I say, you could undoubtedly drink the tap water. What you'll see is that when you're staying in the Kazol Palace in Almaty or the Lotte Hotel in Tashkent. These are absolutely European standard hotels. They're lovely, or the Grand or the hotel in Bishkek as well, and they have all the amenities. It's all fine. However, bottled water is usually provided in all the hotels. Amber will make sure there's a supply on board the buses as well. So yeah, it's probably a better choice. Um, yeah, also Peggy asked about taking euros to exchange to local currencies. I wouldn't, if you have euros, sure, bring them, you can change them, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get euros to then change them into something else. You might as well just take Canadian dollars, because they can do that. Um, yeah, and then let's see what else have we got here. Oh, Chris asked about the SIM card. Do you have to connect for each country? So make sure that with the SIM cards again, there's a lot of options and variables. As I recall, that there is a SIM card on Airolo. Amber, correct me, you may have subscribed to this already, that covers all of Central Asia, so all these countries plus probably a bunch of other ones. So typically you can get a regional one that will cover the different countries. Otherwise, you have to buy one for each country. So it's just a matter of assessing, and then when you depending on which one you have, if you have a regional SIM card, you just connect once, you activate it once when you arrive, and then it's good for the whole time. If you have one that's country by country, you'll obviously have to reactivate when you cross the border into each country. So it's kind of up to you. And again, the options, the combinations and permutations are uh, almost limitless. So that's why we don't give specific advice on it, because yeah, there's just so many different options to choose from. So you just have to do a little bit of research on that. Chris asked again, confirming that some of us are leaving on November 3rd and not November 2nd. That's right. So some are staying longer in Kiva, or staying the extra night because of the flight availability and so on. So I think we're pretty clear if you've sent us your air ticket information when it is that you're leaving.
Yeah, it
And
looks like everybody's leaving on the third with the exception of one person. So one person is
right,
leaving on the second and everyone else is on the third.
there
And
you
we
go.
are all on the same flight.
There you go. Yeah, because there just wasn't that many options because they
Exactly.
changed the
Yep.
schedules, and hopefully no more schedule changes between now and then, but I think we should be uh pretty good.
Yep.
Um yeah, good. I think yeah, and the question about how much to take, how much money to take, again, up to you. It largely depends on what you think you're going to buy in terms of souvenirs. Credit cards are taken even sometimes in the markets, so you know, and you don't want to take too much. So, I mean, if you had $100 worth of any given currency, it's probably all you're going to need. And yeah, so I would err on the side of not taking too much. If you do find something like, oh, I absolutely have to have this, you'll find an ATM not far away where you can get some more cash to be able to make that purchase. Good. I think we've covered pretty much everything. I don't see any other questions, so last call for questions. But otherwise, of course. Oh, yes. Sorry. Do we bargain in marketplaces? Absolutely, you bargain in marketplaces. And if you want tips on how to do that, Amber's the master bargainer, right?
One of
So
my
yeah,
favorite things. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, marketplaces you can absolutely bargain, and you can get some advice from either Amber and the guide, because people say, "Well, how much do you bargain?" Well, that's how long is a piece of string. But
That's right.
yeah, marketplaces are definitely bargainable, and you'll find some good things to buy. Good. Yeah. So if you do have any other questions that come up after the webinar at any time, please drop us a note. Melody is our main person that answers sort of general questions about trips. But of course, if you've been corresponding recently with Paula or Aura, you can obviously write to them as well. But if you have something else, drop Melody a note. Her information is shown here. And otherwise, have a fantastic trip. I'm excited for you. Amber's excited. We're all excited for this trip. This is a part of the world that this is off the beaten path travel, path travel. This is what I'm all about. And I know you're going to have an amazing time experiencing this part of the world. So that's it.
Perfect. So everybody reach out to me on Telegram in the next couple of days. I look forward to you saying hi to me.